So reconnaissance from space satellites is a good thing. A really good thing. I don't have any doubt in my mind, based on my research and talking to a number of people who were around at the time, that if not for satellite data about the Soviet Union, we would have had a nuclear war. Because there's so many people in this country who are so afraid of the Soviet Union that they were ready to launch with the merest pretext. So we can thank Eisenhower and later presidents for being around today, because they kept their heads. Eisenhower did stupid things. I can think of Iran and Guatemala, for instance. Other presidents did stupid things, Vietnam, for instance. But no president has ever been willing or ready to use nuclear weapons, despite public statements to the contrary. They just have not been willing to do it. So we're still here. The Cold War is over. The arms race is over, except it isn't. Now we have an incipient arms race in space. We have this idea that America can do anything it wants to in space. That idea flourished under the Clinton years. It really grew strong under the George W. Bush years. And now President Obama is trying to dampen it down. He's issued a new space policy, which gives us reason to hope that the new Cold War with China, the new arms race with China, may not come about. His new space policy, it leaves some wiggle room. Unlike the Bush administration, it does not emphasize America's unilateral right to do anything it wants to. It does say, in effect, that we're willing to speak with other groups. We're willing to work in a multilateral context in the United Nations and elsewhere to try to ratchet down the tensions. But, there's always a but, it still contains the phrase that one of our missions is to achieve the ability to control space in a time of conflict and to exercise force application from space. Force application from space means actual shooters in space capable of hitting other satellites of other countries or perhaps targets on the ground. So it's a split personality sort of policy. The reason it's a split personality is this country is very much a right-of-center country. I think it always has been, and I think it certainly is now. And there's a limit to what the Obama campaign can do, or what the Obama administration can do. It can't just turn around 30 or 40 years of American policy and say we're going to try to execute a real treaty banning all weapons in space and weapons that can affect objects in space. That's politically impossible. But at least the tone has changed. Now back to STRATCOM. STRATCOM has been in the middle of the space issue. STRATCOM is responsible for maintaining the hardware in space. It helps develop a doctrine for space control. And perhaps more important to this group, it's operating a hardware in space that allows us to conduct war. Virtually all the airstrikes in Iraq and Afghanistan and in Pakistan are conducted under STRATCOM auspices. The satellites find targets. The global positioning satellites help zero the targets in, and they help guide bombs and missiles to the targets. STRATCOM in the old days was strictly a deterrent force. It existed so we wouldn't have nuclear war. Now it's actually engaged in fighting wars. Now these are precision weapons, they're not nuclear weapons. And that's an important point. the microphone this time. Precision weapons are truly precise, and that's been known for quite some time. You remember the air war, the NATO air war over Kosovo in 1999. We launched, meaning NATO forces, but meaning actually the United States, launched 23,000 bombs and missiles. 23,000. That's a large number. All to protect the Kosovar Albanians from Milosevic. Human Rights Watch went in after the war ended to conduct an on-the-ground survey. Most of you, I think, know what Human Rights Watch is all about. It's not a pro-military organization by any stretch. A friend of mine conducted that survey. He and his team spent weeks on the ground, going from village to village, talking to people, talking to hospital personnel. They identified, they think, virtually every bomb or missile that hit. They expected to find huge casualties. And in fact, they could only document roughly 500 people who had been killed. Now, 500 may be too many, but from the point of view of world leaders and military people, the question was, how could you use 23,000 bombs and missiles and only kill 500 people? In World War II, in Korea and Vietnam, you would use fewer bombs and kill thousands of people. During World War II, with our saturation bombing campaigns, we killed literally millions of people, we and our allies. So there is something to precision war. There's a moral component here. If you're going to, the reason goes like this, if you're going to conduct war, if you have to conduct war, you should do it in the most humane way possible. Now, I use the word humane, which doesn't seem to fit when you're talking about war. But it's an important concept. There are laws of war. There are agreed upon rules of war. And the most agreed upon rule of war is to try to conduct war in the most, in a way that spares as many non-combatants as possible.